Hi YouTube, Victoria here. I am here to share my labor and delivery story with mamas who are having a high-risk pregnancy or have been diagnosed with gestational diabetes or pre-eclampsia, high blood pressure, anything like that. You can hear sort of my journey very quickly, and then I'll get into the story of how I gave birth. So my original due date was March 1st. And in December is when I went and got a gestational diabetes test, a glucose test, and it came back. My sugars were a little high, and so just to be on the safe side, my doctor said, let's have you see a specialist, sort of a food dietitian, and just sort of get on a diet and watch those sugars. So in December, I started checking my sugars regularly, and it was just sort of diet managed. There was no medication or anything like that. In January is when we started noticing high blood pressure. And so my doctor put me on high blood pressure pills. We started doing stress tests twice a week, and they just monitored me very closely. Having high blood pressure gives you a huge risk for preeclampsia. It's one of the major indicators that you're going to get preeclampsia is the high blood pressure. So they were watching me very closely for that. As I said, I was doing stress tests twice a week, going in and hearing baby, making sure he had adequate accelerations and deaccelerations, and that's just sort of when his heart rate goes up and making sure that it comes back down and up and down, and they just kind of want to see that activity of him moving around and hearing his heart rate go up and down. Towards the end of January, January 31st, I messaged my doctor and I said that, baby was kind of quiet. Oh, actually, it was January 30th. I said, baby's kind of quiet. I haven't felt him as active as I normally feel him. Should I be concerned? Should I go to the emergency room? And my doctor was out of town, and she said, I'll be in town tomorrow on Monday. She said, if you're, feeling really nervous or, just to kind of have a peace of mind, go ahead and go up to the emergency room. And my husband and I had made many trips to the emergency room before. My doctor had sent me over many times before with high blood pressure and just to get an NST. And so we had many hospital visits already prior. And we didn't really want to go back if it was unnecessary. And so I told my husband, I said, well, I feel him moving in there. He's not totally quiet. I'm not, that overly concerned. He just wasn't kicking me as hard and flipping around as much. But I did feel him kicking. So I said, well, let's just wait till tomorrow. I'll go in and see the doctor. So she messaged me first thing in the morning and she said, I've been thinking about you. Come in and get an NST. And I said, okay. So we went in, I did an NST, and baby was pretty quiet. There wasn't a lot of accelerations. There wasn't a lot of deaccelerations. And so doctor came in and said, we're sending you to the hospital. You've gone 36 weeks, and I think it's time that we deliver this baby. He's not as active. He's pretty quiet. So let's get this done. So they sent me straight over to the hospital, and I was so nervous and so scared, that he was coming 4 weeks earlier. I think the thing that I was scared about the most and worried about the most was that I didn't want him to be in the NICU. I was really scared that I wasn't going to be able to take him home, and he was going to have to stay in the hospital, and, he was going to be in a little incubator, and, just all sorts of the worst case scenarios went through your mind. I know one of the last things to develop is the lungs, and I was just so worried that he wasn't going to be able to breathe on his own, and, every mama wants to take their baby home. So that's what I was concerned about the most. So I called everybody. I called my mom. I called my sister, my dad. I said, head over to the hospital. Matt's on his way. We're going to have this baby. So we checked in, and of course they run all sorts of tests on me and draw my blood and, running every test that they can. Because of the high blood pressure, of course I'm constantly monitored and hooked up to the blood pressure machine. And because of that, the high blood pressure, I had to be on a magnesium drip. And that was so that I basically wouldn't have seizures. My doctor was afraid that the blood pressure was so high that I would basically have a seizure. So I was on the magnesium drip, which just makes you feel just like crud. It's really hot, makes you hot, and it tingles in your body, and you get really flushed, and it's pretty miserable. So I was on the magnesium drip. After running all kinds of tests, and doing urine samples, I was also doing 24-hour urine samples, them monitoring and checking. The doctors came back and said, okay, you're officially diagnosed with pre-eclampsia. So you're for sure having the baby. I ended up having urine in my urine. I ended up having protein in my urine. So it was a definite preeclampsia diagnosis. So they sort of got me going. They gave me a pill called cytotosis, I believe, just to sort of get my cervix ready and get it kind of pumping. We stayed there till the next day, which was the 1st. And it was just kind of a slow process. That next day is when they gave me Pitocin to kind of get it going. It's a very long process of getting your body ready to go when your body's not ready and your baby's not ready. So it was sort of a long process. The delivery, however, came very, very quickly. After they had given me the Pitocin, I was diagnosed at 3 centimeters, and contractions weren't too bad for me at that point. I didn't really feel, they felt like a light cramp. And I was kind of surprised how, it didn't really hurt. The doctors and the nurses and everybody kept telling me, okay, well, it's probably time for you to get the epidural. And I was thinking, well, this is kind of easy. Like, shouldn't I wait a little while to get epidural? I don't want to get it too soon. Just because it wasn't really hurting. And they said, the problem is the further you get along, the less likely of the epidural that you get. They don't really like to give it to you, as you're getting closer and closer dilated. Even though my doctor told me I'll give it to you right up until the end. But the anesthesiologist likes to do it, around 3 to 4 centimeters. So I said, okay, well, let's go ahead and get the epidural. So the anesthesiologist comes in, gives me the epidural, and I am feeling fabulous. I'm feeling really good. I kind of took a nap and relaxed, and it was getting towards the evening time, and everybody was saying, oh, don't worry, you're not going to have the baby. It'll probably come tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, he'll come tomorrow. So everyone started to head out. And, I had this feeling that he was going to come. And I told my mom, I told my dad, I said, don't leave, don't go back home. They live about 30 minutes from the hospital. And I just had this feeling that he was going to come. And I told them, don't go home, go to my house, because I live literally like 5 minutes down the road from the hospital. I said, go to my house, like he's going to come, he's coming tonight. And literally about a half an hour later, I went from 3 centimeters to 7 centimeters. And I was just feeling this pressure that just would not quit, like this urge to push I had, and the doctor or the nurse came in and she's like, oh my gosh, you've gone from 3 to 7 centimeters. And I was just like, I want to push. I have this urge to push, this feeling. And she's like, no, don't push, don't push. I'm going to call your doctor. And I said, call the doctor, call doctor. I want her here. I want this baby out. I feel like pushing. And they kept telling me, don't push, don't push, don't push. But it was really strange how quickly I went from 3 to 7. And then I went from 7 to 10, and I knew he was coming. I said, get the doctor here. I'm ready to push. So my doctor shows up. She says, let's get this going. It was quite scary to have all of the nurses in there. I was surprised how many people were in there while I was having baby Joel. But they did have a few NICU, uh, NICU, yeah, NICU nurses in there, just to sort of watch and be ready just in case they needed to rush him to the NICU. But yeah, delivery was very quick. I pushed for about a half an hour. I think 26 minutes was what it was, and he popped right out. The doctor told me how impressed she was with me. She said she had never seen a first-time mama push baby out like that, and it was just magical. It was very quick, even though it felt like a million years. It happened very quickly, and I was very thankful that I only pushed for half an hour. I know some women push for hours and hours, and I was lucky to not to not push that long. So baby Joel came out, and they just rushed him over and checked all his vitals, and he was just perfect. He didn't have to go to the NICU. He stayed with mama. He was 5 pounds 3 ounces, 19 inches. So he was just perfect, and I just got to snuggle him right away. I was nervous they were going to rush him off and I wasn't going to get to hold him right away. But it was just amazing. It was so quick and so fast, and it was such a journey and experience. And I really can't wait to do it again. I'm nervous to go and have a second baby, just because all the problems, the gestational, the high blood pressure, the pre-eclampsia, it was a lot of stress on me and my family. So we shall see. I know once you have pre-eclampsia, you're very likely to have it again. So we shall see. But the advice that I'd like to give you, if you are in the position that I am with high blood pressure, a risk of preeclampsia, or gestational diabetes, is to be positive, to drink lots of water, to follow your diet, to be positive, because your baby will go home with you. And if he doesn't or she doesn't, there's worse things that can happen. And that's just sort of the advice I was getting, was that, your baby's healthy. He could have this wrong, or he could have this wrong, and so what if he stays a week in the NICU? As long as he's healthy and happy and he's gonna eventually come home, then there's nothing to worry about. And just pray. Alrighty, good luck, love you, bye.